Hello, this is Brisa Torres. This is my initial reflection video for social problems. So in this module 1, I learned that sociology is the academic discipline that examines the nature of society, and it basically particularly to modern society. So it explains the relationships between individuals and society, and how it affects how they live, or like the society in which an individual lives, right? So a key point in this module, or the introduction of sociology, is the sociological curiosity, which requires an individual to ask like what to ask the social context to an individual's behavior and choices. So basically, it requires a person to ask, oh, what social context affected this person's behavior, or like what social context affected or influenced this individual's choice. That's basically sociological imagination. So in the reading of Mills, he related two pairs of conceptual distinctions, which was personal troubles and public issues. So it basically simulated sociology at the intersection of like individuals' bibliographies and social history. We also learned I also learned that the sociological observer seeks to connect the personal experiences with the structural arrangement, or like the structural level of society or the social system. We also learned that Mill suggested that people are prone to feeling trapped, or because they feel like their life or personal experiences or choices are being influenced or shaped by poorly understood social forces that remain beyond their individual control. So they feel like their life is being shaped by society, in basic words, right? So developing a sociological imagination in a way will help that individual's feelings, and will help the individual's feelings, and then they will begin to learn how to navigate more effectively outside their like own individual, but be able to interact more effectively in society. So some problems are unique, are quite rare and frequently discussed, while other problems are common yet not really recognized. And this could be seen with like how problems can become like social issues, right? So in social issues, like some problems are quite rare, like you don't really hear about them, but are rare, but you hear about them frequently, right? While other problems, which are like more common and like everyday, what's it called? What's everyday like occurrences, you don't really recognize them, or you don't hear them a bunch. Like Mills uses the example of gun violence, how school shootings not are rarely occurring, or don't occur as much as gun violence, and yet they're talked frequently throughout the news, the media, while gun violence, which is a more common occurrence, isn't really talked about, or isn't really talked about as frequently in media and social media as school shootings. So we also learned about what's it called? The ability, like how individuals are even better off when they put their own circumstances in context, like the social and historical context. So basically, for Mills, this would urge like the weight gain that he used, the example of gaining weight, Mills uses this example to highlight how he would like draw attention to changing the social context of food in addition to developing a personal diet and exercise regimen. He says it's because an individual can put himself or themselves to like drop pounds or like lose weight, but eventually that individual will gain the weight back again. So he believes that drawing a social context to food and how like food is being produced and like being marketed by giant food corporations, and as well as doing that, implying that personal attention or like um, personal personal motivation to lose weight will help ultimately these individuals, right? So not only viewing the individual context, but also viewing the social context. So he also points out how social structure points to the constellation of social institutions like economic systems, political arrangements, and like cultural values in which individuals find themselves more like situated. So the social structure is like a broad social context in which Mills, particularly in this reading, he contrasts it with like personal milieu, I think, which is like one's particular resistance, like circle of friends, like personal milieu, like your own close friendship, like your intimate family circle or like your own circle, while social structures is more like a big social institution where there's different groups and you would simulate with different individuals instead of your close contact individuals that you contact every day. So in the overall, the key point of this reading was sociological imagination, which is the ability to switch back and forth between the individual's viewpoint and the social viewpoint. So how an individual is viewing something and how the society is viewing it as well. So sociological curiosity is not sociological curiosity is the desire to seek out social context and connections between our experiences and the social, like the cultural, economic, political arrangements around us. So while social imagination describes the ability to switch back and forth between viewpoints, uh, sociological curiosity is a desire to seek out like social context and like find that connection between society and individuals, as well as reading the sociological curiosity by reading by Mills. We were also instructed to read the forest, the trees, the one by Johnson, and for this reading, I learned how individualism, which is basically used to describe the main um, way of thinking, that social problems basically arise or come from like individual character flaws. Um, but throughout this reading, Johnson critiques individualism, which is the dominant mode of thinking that social problems is affected by individual flaws. He basically critiques it and basically says that it doesn't really make sense, right? So in The Forest, the Trees, the One, throughout the reading, Johnson highlights the one. The one thing. Sorry. The one thing. He highlights what he's trying to say, that all individuals in society are connected to the social system or are connected in the social system, right? Because he says that that one thing that connects everyone is their individuals' relationships. So individuals' relationships allows that connection within individuals in a social system. Um, Johnson also talks about greedy behavior and how it's not really a strategy, it's more of a, like, an exception. He compares playing Monopoly to being not being greedy, because basically there's no point in playing Monopoly if you're not going to be greedy, because then that would take out the purpose behind the game, which is to be greedy, win money, and win property, right? So that's why he defines greedy behavior as being more of an exception and not really of a strategy, as it would take out the purpose of being greedy. You also talk about the two perspectives of sociology, the object, objectivist, sorry, the objectivist perspective, which basically it emphasizes, like, on the conditions that we need to be that could be clearly measured. So if it emphasizes on, like, measuring conditions, like, and then, I mean, not measuring conditions, but, like, emphasis on conditions that can be measured. So it also looks at the conditions that can create suffering to certain social groups, or particular social groups. It also looks at the discrepancies between, like, what a country stands out for, like, what the government stands out for what the economy stands out for, and how, like, an individual or, like, a person is actually living. So how does that, like, how do they correlate? And then you also talk about the subjectivist perspective, which basically emphasizes more on how, like, definitions of social problems change by time, or, like, throughout time, or by audiences, or, like, different social groups. It questions how social phenomena can become can determine social problems. So how, like, a social phenomenon can determine a social problem. Basically, that's what it says. And then you also talk how problems will always be subjective too, and framing problems and reasoning will vary. So, like, how you frame the problem and how you reason that problem will vary, and how people view problems also varies according to their perspective. Yeah, so you talk about how problems vary a lot, and how global, or even, like, only relevant to or how problems could be global or only relevant to a small group or a group of people. So powerful people tend to define reality, right? That's what you emphasize. And then it also emphasizes how, like, social problems, subjective problems are, like, emphasize things that often offend the general public. Uh, what's subjective Subjectivists look at, like, social problems as a process of responding to social conditions, and it places emphasis on, like, social construction, and, like, the social construction of social problems. You talk about norm violations, sorry, and how it focuses on sorry, it focuses on the discrepancy of, like, between social standards and, like, reality, and how, like, that the relationship between those two. And then you also talk about how, like, the views of victim of society problems are not the problem themselves. I think I yeah yeah. So how, like, the victim of social problems isn't really, like, the problem. The problem isn't really themselves. The problem, not the problem themselves. Sorry, they view victims as the social problem, and not the problem it's themselves. Um, We also talk about social conditions and how it focuses on the conditions that cause suffering for groups of people and not individuals. So it basically causes problems for social groups and not individuals. Sorry. Okay, so it emphasizes how society is organized and how like who benefits from it, who benefits from society, and then it argues that society fails to meet people's needs, and that causes problems to occur. That's social conditions. And then yeah. Um I I think that's all I learned. I mean, no, I know I learned more, but these are the things that stuck out more to me, that really like went into my brain, and I found it really interesting. So thank you for listening to my initial reflection video. Sorry for the confusion sometimes. Thank you. Have a great day.